When Arman Rahman first saw Maya at the university library, he noticed two things immediately: her quiet confidence and the way she carefully turned each page of her book as if it were something fragile and sacred. Arman was the only son of one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city. His father owned factories, apartment buildings, and shares in companies that Arman barely understood. Money had always surrounded him: luxury cars, expensive watches, private tutors, and a future that had already been designed for him. Maya, on the other hand, worked part-time at a small cafe near campus to pay her tuition fees. She lived in a tiny rented apartment with peeling paint and a stubborn ceiling fan that made more noise than wind. Her clothes were simple, her phone outdated, but her eyes held a kind of determination that Arman had never seen before. Their first conversation happened by accident. Arman reached for a book on economics at the same time Maya did. Their hands touched briefly. "Oh, sorry," Arman said quickly. "It's okay," Maya replied, offering a small smile. "You can take it. I've already read it twice." He laughed. "Twice? I haven't even opened it once." That day, they sat together at the same table. What started as a discussion about supply and demand turned into a conversation about dreams, fears, and childhood memories. Arman found himself listening more than speaking, fascinated by the way Maya saw the world. She didn't talk about brands or vacations abroad. She talked about building a school in her village one day. She talked about helping her mother retire from working as a tailor. She talked about earning everything with honesty. For the first time in his life, Arman felt small, not because he lacked money, but because he lacked purpose. Weeks turned into months. They began studying together regularly. Arman started visiting the cafe where Maya worked, pretending he loved their bitter coffee. He would sit at a corner table watching her laugh with customers and handle long shifts without complaint. He admired her strength. One evening, as they walked home under the golden light of sunset, Arman finally said what had been sitting in his heart. "Maya, I think I'm in love with you." She stopped walking. Her expression changed, not to happiness, but to worry. "Arman," she said softly, "your world and mine are very different. I don't care about that, but your family will." Arman brushed it aside. "Let me handle that." He believed love was enough. He believed his father, Mr. Rahman, would understand. He was wrong. When Arman told his father about Maya, the reaction was colder than winter. "A cafe worker?" his father said sharply. "You will marry someone who benefits this family. Love does not build empires. Money does." Arman felt something break inside him. "I don't want an empire," he replied quietly. "I want a life." His father gave him an ultimatum. "If you choose that girl, you choose to leave this house with nothing." That night, Armand lay awake staring at the ceiling of his luxurious bedroom. The walls were decorated with expensive paintings, the bed softer than clouds, but he had never felt so trapped. The next day, he met Maya at their usual park bench. She could see the storm in his eyes before he spoke. "You gave you a choice," she guessed. He nodded. "And if you choose me," she said carefully, "you lose everything." Armand looked at her worn-out sandals, her tired hands, her brave smile. "No," he said firmly, "if I choose you, I gain everything that matters." Tears filled Maya's eyes. "Armand, I don't want to be the reason you lose your family." "You're not the reason," he said. "Money is." For days, Armand struggled. He loved his father. He respected the sacrifices that built their wealth. But he also realized something painful. His father loved control more than happiness. Finally, Armand made his decision. He packed a single suitcase, no expensive watches, no credit cards, just clothes and a few books. When he walked out of the mansion gates, he felt fear, but also freedom. Maya was waiting for him near the cafe. When she saw the suitcase, her heart raced. "You really did it." He smiled nervously. "I hope you don't mind a poor boyfriend." She laughed through tears. "We'll both be poor then." The first months were hard. Armin wasn't used to counting every coin before spending it. He found a job at a small marketing firm with a salary that was tiny compared to what he once considered pocket change. He learned to ride crowded buses instead of sitting in a private car. He learned how to cook simple meals. There were nights when exhaustion made him question everything. But every time he looked at Maya, studying late at night, refusing to give up, he remembered why he chose this path. Love was not about comfort. It was about partnership. Years passed. Maya graduated with top honors and later opened a small educational center for underprivileged children. Armin slowly built his career from the ground up. It took time, effort, and countless mistakes, but it was his own success, not inherited. They married in a simple ceremony attended by close friends. No luxury hotel, no diamond decorations, just laughter, homemade food, and genuine blessings. One afternoon, many years later, Armin received unexpected news. His father had fallen ill. Without hesitation, Armin went to visit him. The once powerful businessman looked smaller in the hospital bed, weaker. "You chose love," his father said quietly. "Yes. And are you happy?" Armin thought about their small apartment filled with children's drawings from Maya's school. He thought about evenings spent cooking together. He thought about struggles that made them stronger. "Yes," he answered honestly, "I am." His father's eyes softened for the first time in years. "I built wealth," the old man whispered, "but I forgot to build warmth." There was silence between them, heavy but healing. Before leaving, Armin held his father's hand. Money could buy comfort, it could buy power, it could even buy loyalty, but it could never buy love freely given. As Armin walked out of the hospital, he understood something clearly. Choosing love had not made him poor, it had made him rich in ways money could never measure. And that was a fortune no one could take away. After that hospital visit, something changed inside Armin. For years, he had believed that walking away from his father's wealth meant closing a chapter forever. But as he stood beside that hospital bed, seeing the fragile version of the man who once controlled everything, Armin realized something deeper. Money had built walls between them, but love could still build a bridge. When he returned home, Maya was sitting on the floor of their living room, helping two children from her educational center with their homework. Their small apartment was noisy, warm, and alive. The walls were covered with colorful drawings, houses, trees, dreams written in shaky handwriting. Armin leaned against the doorway and smiled. "How is he?" Maya asked gently after the children left. "He's different," Armin replied. "Smaller, regretful." Maya looked at him with understanding. People often realize the truth when they're about to lose everything. Armin sat beside her. He said he built wealth but forgot to build warmth. Maya didn't speak. She just held his hand. Weeks later, Mr. Rahman was discharged from the hospital. To everyone's surprise, he sent Armin a message asking to meet again, this time at Armin and Maya's apartment. Armin was nervous. "He's never been here," he said. Maya laughed softly. "Well, he's about to see what real luxury looks like." When the doorbell rang, Armin opened it to find his father standing there without his usual expensive suit. No bodyguards, no driver waiting outside. just an aging man holding a small fruit basket. He stepped inside slowly, his eyes scanning the modest room, the simple furniture, the bookshelf filled with secondhand books, the children's artwork taped to the wall. "This is where you live?" he asked quietly. "Yes, this is home." Maya came forward respectfully. "Assalamu alaikum, uncle." Mr. Rahman nodded. "Wa alaikum assalam." There was an awkward silence at first, but then something unexpected happened. A little girl from the educational center ran in without knocking. "Miss Maya, I solved the math problem." She froze when she saw the stranger. Maya smiled. "That's wonderful, Aisha. Come, show me." The little girl sat on the floor and proudly explained her solution. Mr. Rahman watched quietly as Maya patiently corrected her mistake and praised her effort. "Why do you do this?" he finally asked after the child left. Maya answered honestly, "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing. I promised myself I would do the same." Mr. Rahman looked around again, this time differently, not with judgment, but with curiosity. "Does it make you money?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "Not much." "Then why?" "Because it makes me happy." The words lingered in the room. For the first time in his life, Mr. Rahman saw a kind of success he had never measured. There were no profit charts, no contracts, no negotiations, just impact. Over the next few months, he began visiting more often. Sometimes he brought books for the children. Sometimes he simply sat and watched. One evening, he called Arman aside. "I spent my whole life thinking security came from money," he said. "But security also comes from knowing someone loves you, not for what you own, but for who you are." Arman felt emotion tighten his chest. "I was afraid you would waste your life," his father continued. "But you built something stronger than I ever did." "What's that?" Arman asked. "A family built on choice, not obligation." Not long after, Mr. Rahman made a surprising decision. He announced that a large portion of his company's profits would now support educational programs for underprivileged communities, including Maya Center. But this time, it wasn't about control. He didn't demand ownership. He didn't attach conditions. "I want to invest," he said quietly, "not in buildings, but in futures." Arman hesitated at first. "I don't want charity," she said firmly. "It's not charity, it's partnership." Years passed again. The small educational center grew into a proper school. Children who once couldn't afford books were now earning scholarships. Arman expanded his marketing firm ethically, helping small businesses instead of exploiting them. His father, now retired, often visited the school, sitting under a tree while children played around him. One afternoon, as Arman watched his father laugh with a group of students, Maya stood beside him. "You didn't just choose me," she said softly. "You changed him, too." Arman smiled. "No," he replied. "Love did." Looking back, Arman understood something important. Choosing love over money doesn't mean rejecting wealth forever. It means refusing to let money control your heart. Money can build houses. Love turns them into homes. Money can hire workers. Love creates community. Money can buy comfort. Love creates meaning. Armand once walked away from a mansion with only a suitcase and courage. He thought he was losing everything. But standing there years later, surrounded by laughter, purpose, and a healed family, he realized he had made the richest decision of his life. Because in the end, money grows when invested, but love grows when given. And the returns? They last forever. 10 years later, the school stood taller than anyone had imagined. What began as a small, rented room with peeling paint had transformed into a bright, 3-story building filled with classrooms, books, and laughter. The sign outside read, "Light of Hope Academy," founded by Maya Raman. But Maya never liked seeing only her name there. "This belongs to everyone," she would always say. Armand stood at the school gate one morning, watching students rush in with backpacks bouncing against their shoulders. Some of them were children of factory workers. Some were from villages where education once felt impossible. Now they carried dreams bigger than their circumstances. Inside, Maya was giving a speech to a group of graduating students. "You may not come from wealth," she said gently, "but you come from strength, and strength builds futures." Armand watched her from the back of the hall, his heart swelling with pride. He remembered the girl in the university library who turned pages like they were fragile treasures. She had built something powerful, not with money, but with conviction. After the ceremony, Mr. Rahman slowly walked onto the stage. Age had curved his back slightly, but his presence still commanded attention. "I used to believe," he began, his voice steady but softer than before, "that success was measured by profit. Today, I see it is measured by impact." He paused, looking at Maya. "You taught me that." The audience clapped warmly. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Later that evening, the three of them sat together in the school courtyard. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. "I was wrong," Mr. Rahman admitted quietly. "I almost lost my son because I valued money more than his happiness." Armand shook his head. "You didn't lose me." "But I could have," his father replied, "and that would have been the greatest poverty of my life." There was a peaceful silence between them. No tension, no pride, just understanding. Years earlier, Armand had walked away from unimaginable wealth. Now, ironically, wealth had found its way back to him, but in a different form. His company had grown steadily, built on fairness and trust. Investors respected him not just for profits, but for integrity. He had proven something important. Choosing love did not mean choosing failure. It meant choosing values first. One night, after putting their two young children to bed, Armand and Maya sat on their small balcony. The city lights shimmered in the distance. "Do you ever regret it?" Maya asked softly. "Regret what?" "Walking away from everything back then." Armand smiled. "I didn't walk away from everything. I walked towards something." Maya rested her head on his shoulder. "When we first started," she said, "I was scared. I thought love wouldn't be enough." "It wasn't," Armand replied.
She looked up, surprised. "It wasn't just love," he continued. "It was commitment, sacrifice, patience, forgiveness. That's what made it enough." Maya laughed gently. "You've become very wise. Living without a safety net teaches you things," he said. Downstairs, their children's laughter echoed faintly through the open window. It was a sound richer than any luxury car engine Armin once owned. Months later, Mr. Rahman passed away peacefully. At his funeral, many business partners spoke about his achievements, factories, investments, economic growth. But when it was Armin's turn to speak, he said something different. "My father built companies that created jobs," he said. "But in the end, he chose to build people. And that was his greatest success." After the ceremony, Armin stood alone for a moment. He thought about the ultimatum years ago. Choose love and leave with nothing. How strange it seemed now. He had once believed wealth was security. But security came from knowing someone would stand beside you when you had nothing. He had once believed money created power. But power came from choosing what was right, even when it was hard. He had once believed losing inheritance meant losing opportunity. But in truth, it forced him to create his own. Back at home, Maya was organizing books for a new library branch they were planning to open in a rural village. "Ready for the next dream?" she asked with a playful smile. Armin rolled up his sleeves. Always. As they worked together, side by side like they had from the beginning, Armin understood the final truth of his journey. Money is a tool. Love is a foundation. Tools can build structures, but foundations determine whether they stand. Years ago, a wealthy young man fell in love with a girl who had almost nothing. He thought he was risking comfort. Instead, he found meaning. He thought he was sacrificing luxury. Instead, he gained legacy. And in the quiet warmth of their simple home, surrounded by purpose, family, and shared dreams, Armin knew with absolute certainty. Choosing love over money had not made him less powerful. It had made him free.